Here we have a situation in which a candidate is dropping out before they're the formal nominee. What should usually happen in that case under the law is that candidate first needs to give back all of their general election money. That doesn't seem to be what's happening here. It seems like what instead the Democrats are going to do is, as you said, take the money and run, give it to the Harris campaign, not bother to get any FEC guidance, and just deal with any consequences on that after the election. The FEC has a process for just these kinds of situations. We have a process where you can come to the FEC, say you have a problem, you can get an expedited review in 20 days, get a thumbs up or a thumbs down. They decided not to do that. They just changed the paperwork on their committee, slapped a new name on it, called it the Harris for President Committee.
The Trump campaign has officially filed an FEC complaint, Federal Election Commission complaint, against Kamala Harris as their first major attack against the new Democratic nominee. Now, the argument that they're making is that the money that was rolled over from the Biden campaign to the now Harris campaign was done so illegally. It violated campaign finance laws. And the gentleman you just heard from is actually the chairman of the FEC, who was appointed by Donald Trump. And while there's a 50-50 partisan split in the FEC, it's clear that the eventual decision on this matter that will be determined by the FEC will have some individuals siding with the Trump campaign on it. Now, I want to give you a few arguments that are being made by the Trump campaign in just a moment, but before I do, Cenk.
Yeah, there's two reasons why they're not going to succeed. This is not a crazy argument, but it won't work because of a Democratic turncoat at the FEC and what she has said, and it won't work because if it did, it would create even bigger problems for the Trump campaign.
Interesting.
So I'll explain that in a minute.
Okay, so first let's get to the details of the complaint itself. Understand that this is different from a lawsuit. This is, for now, a complaint. They might pursue a lawsuit, but here's what the complaint alleges. Now, Trump campaign general counsel David Warrington filed this complaint. His complaint came after the Biden team amended the name of its committee on Sunday to Harris for President. They write that Kamala Harris is seeking to perpetrate a $91.5 million heist of Joe Biden's leftover campaign cash, a brazen money grab that would constitute the single largest excessive contribution and biggest violation in the history of the Federal Election Campaign Act of 1971 as amended. Now, Warrington, according to the New York Times, also accused the president, Kamala Harris, and the campaign treasurer of flagrantly violating the act by making and receiving an excessive contribution of nearly $100 million and for filing fraudulent forms with the commission purporting to repurpose one candidate's principal campaign committee for the use of another candidate. Now, that argument might make more sense if we're talking about Biden trying to roll over that money to, let's say, a Pete Buttigieg who didn't run on the ticket. But of course, Kamala Harris has always been on that ticket, just not as the top of the ticket. She ran as Biden's VP. So one of the arguments is, no, this isn't just rolling over money to some random candidate. This is rolling over the money to Kamala Harris, who has served as Biden's VP.
Yeah, so the FEC was usually deadlocked at 3-3. It's kind of an absurd organization. It's very important. You don't have to go to civil court to adjudicate this. If the FEC says, no, you can't bring that money over, that would be pretty devastating for Kamala Harris's campaign. Look, at the end of the day, they're gonna raise billions of dollars here. It's only about $100 million. I know it sounds so funny. Only $100 million in lobbyist money, but still that would suck, right? But now, so in the past you would have been like 3-3, it doesn't matter. Democrats are gonna vote this way, Republicans are gonna vote, and it's gonna be irrelevant. No, the deadlock has been broken because a Democrat has turned on the Republicans. It's a woman named Dara Lindenbaum. No one saw it coming. In fact, I think she might have been actually advocated for by some progressives. She gets onto I know, she gets onto the FEC. She's like, I don't see any corruption. The Republicans can do anything you like. You can transfer money, get donors from that, donors from there. She's now agreeing with the Republicans on almost everything. Okay?
So is she gonna agree with the Trump campaign on the Biden-Harris money rollover situation?
So that's why the first thing I looked for was, okay, which way is Dara Lindenbaum gonna go on this? Because that will definitely determine it. And she said, quote, it's quite clear Vice President Harris can continue using the campaign committee and its funds. So since she's not on the Republican side this time, they have almost no chance of succeeding. And they're not gonna succeed in court either. But The other part of it is you see a lot of Republicans going, not a good idea. Like Steve Roberts said, wishful thinking. He's general counsel for Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign. Why are they saying that? Because if it's not a Biden-Harris team ticket that you could transfer the money to, then each candidate, presidential candidate, can split it into a Biden ticket and a Harris ticket, a Trump ticket and a Vance ticket, and then you could double dip. Okay, so the argument that Harris is making is it's obviously a single ticket. If it's not, once I name a vice president, can I have that vice president raise the same amount of money from the same donors? Because technically you're telling me the vice president can raise on their own and has to raise on their own. In which case I just go back to Jeffrey Katzenberg, Big Pharma, Big Oil, everyone else, and I get twice as much money. So and the Democrats these days are better at raising money, and certainly Kamala Harris has raised $250,000 in about 24 hours. She's doing way better than Trump in raising money. So that's why the Republican strategists are like, maybe not on the double dipping. Maybe it's a bad idea.
So I actually want to skip ahead a little bit to the video breaking down Kamala Harris's fundraising. In just 3 days, she has raised an insane amount of money. In fact, the amount of money she raised in 3 days has far surpassed the $91 million that the Trump campaign is currently squabbling over. And so that's really important because you are right, Cenk. I mean, the funds that were rolled over from Biden to Harris, important resources for her to move forward with this campaign, but she's done pretty well on her own raising money because there's been so much enthusiasm toward her after Biden dropped out of the race. So with that in mind, let's go to this breakdown, video A3, showing how much money Harris has raised, not only for the campaign committee, but also for super PACs.
Since Sunday, the campaign says it's raised more than $100 million, the largest one-day haul in presidential history, plus $150 million donated to super PAC Future Forward, with more than 500,000 grassroots donors giving for the first time this cycle. Harris has also inherited $240 million that's been controlled by the Biden campaign.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our honest reporting. You do it at tyt.com/team, and we love you for it.
So if you consider the super PAC money, that also increases the amount of money that we're talking about from Biden to Harris to the tune of about $250,000 as well.
$250 million.
I'm sorry, $250 million. That always amazes me. Like it amazes me how every election cycle the numbers just get bigger and bigger. And Cenk, to your point earlier about how Democrats have gotten better with fundraising for their campaigns, I know that with the way the system works right now, that's considered a good thing, but that's also a double-edged sword. It's also a bad thing because think about what that money really means. Now, an analysis of that money indicates that about 62% came from small dollar donors. The rest came from big corporate donors, big money donors. We're talking about the millionaires and billionaires. Obviously, that money comes with strings attached, and we're gonna see how that money influences the messaging on her campaign and what kind of policies she's going to purport to champion as the Democratic nominee.
Yeah. So one of our members on Twitch, Drenched to Wildfire, said this is stupid, but even if the Biden donations had to be returned, couldn't those donors just take the money back and redonate it to Kamala Harris? Yes, they could. So this is stupid in 18 different ways. So for the reasons I explained earlier, for the reason that one of our members just explained, I love the members, hit the join button below, do the show with us. But also because last election cycle, it was just midterms, right? Not even a presidential race. And they raised a record $17 billion. Jeez. Okay, so this election cycle with a presidential race, a very important one, is going to be way above that. So that's why that $100 million that we're fighting over is kind of a drop in the bucket. And I know it's absurd that it sounds that way, but it is. And lastly, as I've told you all along, because I wanted an open convention, not to anoint someone. And so I was never worried about that money because it could always be assigned to a super PAC who would then spend it on whoever the candidate is anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so the final thing I'll say about this story is the reaction from the Trump campaign and Republicans overall to Kamala Harris now being the presumptive Democratic nominee has kind of shocked me because they should have been preparing for it, and everything that they've done makes it appear as though they were caught flat-footed.
100%. And I did a video for the members from the floor of the convention at the RNC, which I rather enjoyed, from the belly of the beast. Check that out if you're a member. And I picked up the placards that said "Fire Biden," and I was like, "This is a giant waste of money." And that was, of course, before Biden dropped out, but I was positive that he was going to drop out. And they didn't wave it much that day, because towards the very end of the conference, the rumor mill was buzzing about how Biden was going to drop out over the weekend. They finally caught on like Thursday, the last day of the convention. And I remember walking around the convention and everybody's talking about Biden. I'm like, you guys don't know that he's not going to be the nominee? I mean, it's ironic because they have all these wild conspiracy theories about how Michelle Obama is going to replace him, but she's not really a woman, and you know, all these crazy things. But they couldn't see the most obvious thing coming. So, and that's why Trump, more than the $100 million we're talking about here, he's mostly hurt that he's like, yeah, we were doing a campaign against Biden, and then he changed. I don't like that. That's not fair. Brother, politics ain't fair. And if anybody should know that, it's you.
100%.
Right?
And look,
you don't get to cry about it afterwards.
With Biden no longer in the race, there are certain attack lines that Republicans can no longer fall back on, right? The attacks against Hunter Biden. Those are now completely irrelevant.
Oh, yeah. Well, by the way, we have free Hunter at shoptyt.com, but now the Republicans are free him because they won't care.
Time to decommish.
By the way, I don't know if you said this earlier today, Anna, but it was a good point about how, now Kamala Harris is more free to attack on the convictions. There's some chance that Joe Biden was holding back a little bit,
right?
Because they say, oh yeah, what about your son? And he loves his son so much. I did the air quotes, but he really does, right?
Of course he does, yeah. So attacking Trump's criminality was a little more difficult for Joe Biden given the criminality of his own son. But Kamala Harris has actually decided to lean into her former role as a prosecutor and has kind of positioned herself as a prosecutor going after, the way that she's framing it, Trump, who is a predator toward women, someone who has these convictions. And so it's an interesting tactful move. I think it's a smart move. I think it's actually going to bring in some more moderates to the Kamala Harris campaign. And I say that because, the left kind of pushed Kamala to a more progressive messaging area against prosecuting criminals and things like that. And I think that was a bad idea. I think that she should tap into her prosecutor history as she positions herself to attack Donald Trump.
Yeah, last couple of things here. One's a little off topic, but to your point, Anna, there's 4 people that I'm interested in for VP. We'll talk about it in other parts of the show, but one of them is Gretchen Whitmer. And I'm growing to like that idea more and more as we go along. Because
you like risky, huh?
No, I don't think it's that risky at all. I think it doubles down on your strength, and I think it drives out women voters, especially when abortion is the top issue in the last couple of elections. I think that it will present a target to the Republicans they will not be able to resist. They will make endless sexist comments and misogynistic comments, and it could be a huge problem for them. She could deliver Michigan, etc. I'm not set yet, but I think that's an interesting strategy. And then the final thing I wanted to say is come back to your original point. It drives me crazy whenever any article mentions raising more money as like some amazing thing. Like I get it, you needed to win the race, and we analyze it from that point of view as well. But it should always be noted for the record, these are all people who want favors.
Exactly.
So whether it's Democrats or Republicans, whoever that candidate is, and in this case it's both candidates raising record numbers, saying, oh, I'll deliver for you and not the voters. I'll deliver for you and not the voters. And you've got to be unbiased about that no matter which side you're on. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.